Welcome, 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 welcome. My name is G, and you're watching All Astrology. This is for you, Scorpio. We are going over your November. We have an eclipse, and we also have a new beginning. Actually, two new beginnings will be coming, right? So we're going to walk through this together. I'm going to look at the astrology because that's how I get the greatest accuracy. And then I will pull you a card. So a card for the eclipse and then another card for the new beginning. The eclipse, and it's right at the front end of November. It's November 8th. Now we got to find out, Scorpio, what is this going to involve? Who is it going to involve? What area of your life? And how big of a deal will it be for you? Lunar. So it's the moon, right? So it's the sun and the moon at the opposite ends. It's a full moon. It is a blood moon eclipse, right? November 8th is the date of this eclipse. Okay. And this eclipse happens in the sign of Taurus energy. So it is your values. Your values. Yeah. So your values, think about Taurus energy. It's my desires. It's my money. It's my food. It's my creature comforts. It's the earth. It's banking, investments, right? It's like, this is my pen, not your pen, mine, mine, all mine, and only mine. You're having an eclipse in your seventh house, Scorpio. Now, why does this matter? Well, your seventh house, when I was talking about mine, is it mine? Your seventh house is partnerships, significant partnerships. So this is like marriage and business partnerships. Yeah. So when you're marriage and business partnerships, it's really more of this is ours, right? There has to be compromise. There has to be equality, right? Like you own 50%, I own 50%. Like that's a partnership, right? Right. We're in this together, partnerships. So it's kind of like, in a way, it's kind of like our values, isn't it? So it's kind of complicated. Now, I know some folks where they're married and yeah, they even have their own home, but they may have like their own bedrooms. Married folks, right? They may have their own bedrooms, their own bathrooms. Actually, I don't know these other people personally. This other story I'm going to share, or example, I should say. They, I think, were married and divorced. Yeah, they're older now. And they found out that they cannot live together. So they literally have like their own place, their own homes that are like across the street from each other. Yeah, or a couple houses down or something. They're very close. They're like within walking distance, right? And they're a couple. Yeah. Again, they were married and divorced. And that's kind of like this because it's like, but this is mine, you know? And so the reason it's complicated is because Taurus energy is very fixed. And I'm talking to you, Scorpio, which is very fixed. You're both fixed. Yeah. So it doesn't mean that you're that kind of a person or that you have that sort of a relationship because there's a whole lot of things in your chart that can make other things a lot easier where that doesn't have to be so extreme. But it's that compromise energy. It's what's your ability to compromise. Taurus is quite fixed. And when it's about something it values, it's usually not willing to compromise a whole lot unless the other person's values are exactly and identical, right? Then it gets along and it's like, oh yeah, you value the exact same things I do, so you take care of those things, right? There's not like an argument or whatnot. Now, an eclipse means a release and a let go. A lunar eclipse means a release and a let go. Okay, so for some of you, 16 degrees, or I should say 14, 15, 16, 17 degrees, maybe 18 degrees, right? Some of you, because it's Taurus, it may not just be about the material and the tangible. It might not just be about, well, hey, we own this together type of thing, or this is our company. No, it's the relationship. Yeah, it's the relationship because that's the seventh house. So if you're having a release eclipse about relationships, well, you may be releasing somebody actually. Right. Now, don't get all freaked out. I'm not here to be like, hey, your relationship's over. It doesn't mean that necessarily. It means there can likely be some challenges in the relationship, okay? And it can bring about shocks and surprises only because Uranus is very close to this eclipse, okay? Now, in your own chart, if you have something at those degrees that I mentioned, you would probably have already started to see some glimpses of this, okay? You could very easily have already started to sense something, right? And when this eclipse comes, it might just give you, because it's an emotional raise, right? Because it's the moon and the moon is the emotions. So when that happens, right, either there's a conversation or an event occurs where our emotions raise up. Yeah. And it's going to be powerful because it's Taurus. It has to do with something we desire or someone we desire, right? And there may be a choice that we make, right? There might be a choice where we're just like, uh, I don't know about this anymore, right? But it might simply be something where you say, we may need to have a discussion or we may even need to have some time apart and call it time out, right? It doesn't have to be all horrible. Okay. Some of you, especially if you've been around the block a few times with a partner, it could just be a disagreement. But what I will say is that because it's in Taurus and Scorpio where these energies are running along, it's intense. Scorpio is very intense. And well, I'm talking to Scorpio, right? So there can be an intensity to it. Okay. Now, the good news here, because I promised something coming in, right? The good news is that whatever this release is, see if there can be a compromise made. But if not, just understand this is the support from the universe that's saying, we're doing this together because there's something or somebody out there that's going to be better for you, right? It's going to be better for you. And I know when I say those words, it's going to be better for you. Everybody has a different visual of what that means for them. What does that mean? Right. So it could be someone who's got greater compatibility for you. Okay. It could simply be an ending to a business partnership that was already ending, right? You guys were like, hey, this was already in the process. It could be the time when you're literally signing the dotted line, right? It could be that because this eclipse, it speaks to a completion of something. Yeah. So if it's a completion, it's just like, well, that was the natural next step. We knew that when we get to the end of the book is over, right? Unless it's one of those trilogies, right? Where there's got to be a part 2 somewhere. Who knows? But you just don't want to fight it too much, Scorpio, right? Because there's a lot of support here. There's a lot of support. It's the moon. It's the North Node is here. The North Node is close to this eclipse. And that brings me to this new thing. If something ends, right, it really is because there's a new value that you have, right? So it's not necessarily something that you feel like you were blindsided by. So when I say a shock and a surprise, I don't think it's going to be something that's where it just came out of nowhere. I don't think so. I think so much of this has to do with you changing who and what you value. And you've been doing this, right? Yeah, we've all been doing it, right? But there's something that gets triggered because Uranus is involved. So it could be somebody older in your life or an authority figure, somebody that you look up to that either says something to you or there's just, a casual conversation, maybe even, or something happens that kind of wakes you up to something because it's Uranus and that's its job is the awakener. Okay. Business, partnerships, possibly one-on-one significant relationships. These could include marriages, right? And if they're ending, it's because the universe knows there's something or somebody out there for you because it's the North Node next to this. And the North Node is about specifically your future. It's about where you're headed. Like you haven't gotten there yet. So if whoever you're with or whatever you're doing, they're not going to be part of where you're going. And again, this is really for those who have something near these degrees. All right. Now, we have to pay attention to both sides of our chart, the Scorpio and the Taurus energy. All right. So a lot of this for you, Scorpio, because we're talking about you, Scorpio energy on this side, you may be making changes. You may be making changes for work. So you may be making changes where you live. Right. So when that happens, right, when your physical body moves its location, okay, many times we have to make other adjustments in our life. All right. So I don't want anyone to be all freaked out, like, but if you already know what I'm talking about, well, then you already know what I'm talking about. Like this was coming. It was just the next logical step. And the universe is supporting you in this release because the North Node's involved and your future is coming. You haven't gotten there yet. And whatever that thing is you're involved with that the universe wants you to release and let go, it's not part of where you're headed. Okay. So let's pull a card. All right. They're telling me to shuffle it like this, just to give it a quick little whatever, and to split the deck. All right. So I'll do it one more time, quick little whatever. They're telling me to split it. So I'm going to split it. And then we're going to take that card right on top and make it simple. Are you ready? Okay. Here we go, Scorpio. The woman, it looks like a female, right? She's got a little bit of a tear, and you see how she's got the crescent moon on top of her head, and that would be like the bull's horns or Mercury, which is information. All right. So this card was to give a clarifier, to give us a little bit more details. Now, it's got Saturn on here. You see that? And it also has the moon and Cancer energy. So this is something about the past. Something about the past. Family is involved. Mom energy is here. Nurturing. Tribe energy. Okay. Something about the past could be other lifetimes, kind of like soul history. Again, when I said Saturn's on this card, I kind of mentioned Uranus earlier. It's time. There's something about time, and there's something about somebody older or someone who's an authority figure in some way in your life, right? And the astrology kind of spoke to that a little bit. Now, you see how there's no color here? It kind of represents almost like ice in a way, or just colorless, or no emotions, like cold emotions, right? So I'm not sure if who or what you're doing and who you're with, and if there's something that's cold and icy, or it's been here a long time. This could even represent like depression, emotions that are just, yeah, that just don't feel good at all, where it makes it really, the emotions kind of control and they are restrictive in a way, right? So this is the fact that you have the moon on here and it's for an eclipse. There's definitely some sort of a release coming, and it seems like time's involved, and meaning this could be a relationship that was around for a while. And so Taurus, I will say this, because this eclipse is in Taurus, Taurus is really, it gets comfortable. Yeah, it gets comfortable. Think of the word comfortable and the way it's spelt. At the end of it, it's Bull when we're talking about Taurus, right? The bull gets really complacent and comfortable, especially if its creature comforts are met. But that is not always where happiness and joy are going to come from. Somebody that's been stable and that's always been there. If what this card is showing me, there's something heavy, something with the emotions, and it's just not, it's joyless, it's colorless, it's almost lifeless, and it can even be depressing. So something, whatever this thing is, it does have to be released. It has to be let go. And there's a new beginning, a promise for your future. This card supports this release for you. Now, let's discuss your new beginning. All right. I know I talked about the North Node and the new beginning that it's going to be involved with. And that's, again, Taurus energy. So it's a new value and a new partner because it's in your 7th house, right? Could be a business partner. It can also be you have new values for partners because of what you've been through, the knowledge you have, the time that you put in. There's something here where it wasn't for nothing. You learned a lot about partnerships. You learned a lot about compromise, right? And that could be your ability to compromise or your inability to compromise. It could be the ideas around what you will not budge on, right? And where you recognize there are things others will not budge on, right? Absolutely. So it's not a waste. There's a lesson involved, right? And you put the time in. And now the next thing is this new moon beginning, okay? And that comes like on November 23rd. And this has to do with your beliefs, your belief system. Yeah. So that's exciting because, well, when we're talking about what you value, right, we're changing our beliefs. Absolutely. So let me mix these cards up a little bit more and let me explain the rest of this to you. Now, this new belief system, There's a value that you have, and it is on freedom. Yeah, you do have a value on freedom because we're talking about Sagittarius energy. And Sag is all about my freedoms, but the freedoms of my beliefs, right? The freedoms of beliefs, it's higher education, additional learning, right? Extended education, teaching, possibly being the teacher, and wisdom. You value wisdom. Yeah. So there's like spirituality and religion here too, a big value on those things, and maybe not holding enough value on them for yourself, like whatever that is for you. But keep in mind, because I keep hearing judgments based on values. So if you're coming across those, it can go either way. It can go at one end of the extreme. Either you give people a lot of freedom, right, in their belief systems, in their spirituality, in their religion, or you go to the exact opposite where it's like, oh no, I'm very like I'm really into this particular religion, and I'm I know that sounds crazy because it's Sagittarius, which is more about expansive, like the more the better. That's Sagittarius. So you probably own a lot of things. Yeah. Like go big or go home. Yeah. Want to make a lot of money so that you can have all the things that you desire. Um, so there might have been arguments about stuff like that or whatever, but this new beginning in your house of money, your house of values. Yes. But it's based on your belief system. It's based on your beliefs of changing your beliefs of what it is that you value. You obviously value traveling. Yeah, traveling would be a big thing. Um, higher knowledge and wisdom. Yeah, you have this ability to, when you go and travel, you feel freedom. And so your mind kind of opens up and it's like you experience the world and you learn something. And when you experience the world, it somehow teaches you more about you. Like there's something there. You're gaining more wisdom about yourself, right? So this is a new moon and it could be possibly a new job. I don't have your chart in front of me, but look up 2 degrees of Sagittarius, right? Sagittarius in your second house. That's where this eclipse happens. Even if it's not a new job, possibly you're making some new travel plans. It could be that, possibly a new church or a new religion or a new spiritual teacher, but there's a strong value with those things, okay? So we're going to pull this card to get a little bit more details to help explain a little bit more of this for you. But what I like about it is that it's Sagittarius and Jupiter rule Sagittarius. And so it's usually very beneficial energy. It's usually very optimistic energy. And so they said that when it came to what I'm hearing is when it comes to the judgments, there may be things about, judgments that you may make, unconscious judgments on yourself. Yeah. And it may disrupt your ability for self-love. They're also saying you could go to the exact opposite, which is you look at your own gifts and your own abilities and you may exaggerate them. You may be like, oh, yeah, I can do this and I can do that when you really can't. You know how sometimes you meet somebody, I know kids always go through this where they're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go on American Idol. I can sing, I can do this and I can do that. And as a parent, you're like, oh, my God, I don't have the heart to tell them. I know you love singing, but honey, you can't hold the key to save your life. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like that. I'm not saying that's what it is for you exactly, but it's something like that. There may be a skill set that you have where you may not like you may think you're better at it than others think, right? Or others may think you're better at it than you are. You see how it works? It can get really complicated. Like the things I'm saying, it might be like, well, no, actually, I'm the exact opposite. And that would also hold true because it's energy. And you have the freedom to use the energy however you want, but it's got to do with beliefs and judgments and learning and teaching and your values and holding education pretty high, I would think, valuing it. And this could also go with like the judicial system and the way that works for wherever it is that you live. Yes, religion and spirituality keeps coming through too. So let's just get the card and see what there's new beginning and more details for you. And they said to go ahead and do one of these, and they're telling me to do this until I hear to stop, and that I'm not going to be splitting the deck. And actually, they said, stop right there and take this card that is sticking up. Okay, this was very different, which is great. I like different. Are you ready, Scorpio? It's Libran energy in that top corner. And there's Venus on here, so it's love. But see how there's this long distance love relationship? Yeah, and I forgot to mention that, but that could definitely be Sagittarius in the second house. You may be prone to having relationships with people that, you know, yeah, they're far away, because that is Jupiter in Sagittarius, which would also mean somebody who might have a couple of people. I don't know. Have you been accused of having people on the side or something like that? It doesn't have to be like that exactly, but it can be. But this card is crazy because it shows, two people who are divided by the ocean, right? So they're far away from each other. They can't touch each other. They're far away from each other. And Venus and Neptune are here. Yeah. So it's interesting because it's values. And so are you changing your beliefs about that? Is it getting kind of old? Are you done exploring the world? Are you done exploring love? Are you done exploring all your different desires and trying all the different, maybe it's simply a love for travel and a love for adventure, a love for seeking and learning. It could be that. But this card is pinpointing love on here. Venus is on here, right? We've got Neptune, which shows us a far love, that love is far for you. So if it's far from you, is it your lover that's far from you? Is it the love for yourself that's far from you? There's a lot of different ways it can go. But this card is showing long distance relationships, a long distance value, a long distance love, somebody who's overseas. And remember, because it's Taurus, it could be your tangible assets too. But the card is telling us it's got nothing to do with tangible assets. It's got to do with an important relationship. So, Scorpio, I hope this has helped. Please remember, I value you. I value your watching the channel. I value your comments, your thumbs up. I value all your feedback. And yeah, thank you for your time. So below the video, I'll have all the degrees for those of you who like to pay attention to the degrees in your chart. Again, if you don't know and you want to know, just comment below.